This church can have.
We have asked, well, we're obviously getting involved in litigation. That's what we at the United States Justice Foundation do. And I took over 2 years ago as executive director with Gary Creek, who ran the organization for 35 years. I was elected judge out in California. And they called me and they said, will you take over as executive director? And I said, well, only if I don't have to move to the People's Republic of California. And they said that was fine, and I could do that from here. But we originally filed a Freedom of Information Act request to the VA, wanting to know what criteria they're using for putting people on the list, and why are they putting people on the NICS list. Now see, here's the deal on this NICS list, and this is what you have to understand. You're supposed to be a convicted felon, which 99.9% of these veterans are not. You're supposed to be a habitual drug user, which 99.9% of these veterans are not. Or you're supposed to be adjudicated mentally ill to the point of being a danger to yourself or others. Now, adjudicated has always meant a hearing in front of a judge, or at least a judicial authority of some kind. Eric Holder decided when he took office that adjudicated, and when it came to veterans, adjudicating a veteran mentally ill to the point of being a danger to themselves or others can be done by anybody who works for the federal government in any capacity, including independent contractors. I've got whistleblowers inside the VA feeding me information. They tell me that a lot of it, even the VA, is being done by independent contractors. These people are hired, they work from home, they're poorly trained, virtually unsupervised. They're sent a file of a veteran. They never talk to the veteran. These are not psychologists. These are not psychologists. And they are told, declare this veteran incompetent. Then from there, they go on the NICS list automatically. There is absolutely no adjudication process at all to find them mentally ill. Yet they're being branded as that, simply because they're veterans. So we hit the VA with that Freedom of Information Act request. They refused to respond. We sued them, we won, we got some information, including some, I think they said it's by mistake, because it was a confidential memorandum between the FBI and the VA talking about how they could void Fifth Amendment, Fourth Amendment rights of veterans, how they could avoid, giving them the rights. But now we filed an additional Freedom of Information Act request against the VA, wanting to know about the fiduciaries they're appointing for these veterans. Who are these people? In some cases, we have confirmed that they are people retired from the VA or people who still work for the VA. We represent a 93-year-old World War II veteran. He's got throat cancer. The VA's making him wait months for treatment. So he's using his benefits, what little he gets, to pay for his treatment. A guy from the VA comes to visit him and says, you're not competent to handle your own financial affairs. We're going to take over. Well, he argues with him and he says, look, I pay my bills on time. I do everything right. The guy from the VA says, well, you still need a fiduciary, but I'll let you go ahead and continue paying your bills, but I will oversee things. 2 weeks later, when his benefits check is due, it doesn't show up. Didn't show up for 5 months. We finally tracked it down. His checks were now going to a bank in another state in an account in the name of the wife of the VA employee who supposedly was handling his affairs for him. And that's not the first story I've heard of that type either. So we're asking the VA, how are you appointing these fiduciaries? Who are they? And how much are they really being compensated? And we sent Freedom of Information Act requests to the FBI and said, what criteria are you using to declare people mentally ill and put them on the NICS list? And why won't you take them off if they get it reversed? And we've written to the Department of Defense and we said to them, who are these independent contractors you hire? Because here's what we suspect. We suspect that this has become a very lucrative business. That companies out there are being used to declare the veterans incompetent, and then they are being given the job of handling their affairs. They're the fiduciaries being appointed. You get 5% of the veterans' money every month. That's becoming a big business, we think. We've also written to the Department of Homeland Security, and we want to know from them, why? Because simply because they're veterans, are you putting us on the top of the list of potential domestic terrorists? Now, I want every list the FBI has, you know, and every list the Department of Homeland Security has. I mean, I'm pro-Second Amendment, I'm pro-life, I'm anti-President Obama, I'm pro-Constitution, I have my own talk radio show, my own blog, and, you know, I'm waiting on the drones any day circling over my head. The neighbor on the ranch next to me, we just bought a ranch south of Canton. We've already picked out firing positions that we're going to use to take down the drones when they come. But we want to know why veterans are being put on the list. And they are. I've seen this list. They're on the top of the list simply because they're veterans. The response so far has been, thank you for your questions from the FBI, we'll get back to you. Thank you for your questions from the VA, we'll get back to you. Thank you for your questions from the Department of Defense, we'll get back to you. Department of Homeland Security responded directly to our questions. They said, we don't know. Ask the FBI. You don't know how we got on your list? Ask the FBI. So we're trying to raise the money to file suit against all of these agencies to get them to give us the information we need for a major lawsuit, which we're working on right now on behalf of veterans to get injunction relief to stop this nonsense. Congress has tried twice. The U.S. Senate, they have twice introduced legislation, the last one being right after I broke the story. They introduced legislation called the Veterans Freedom of Information, or Freedom of Second Amendment Rights Protection Act. It made it to the Senate floor. Obama opposed it. The Democrats opposed it. It was defeated. They tried an amendment before that, the National Defense Authorization Act. It was defeated. So the lawsuit's the only chance our veterans have. But see, we're a small organization. We're not the ACLU. The head of Progressive Insurance doesn't give us $1 million a year. So we figure we need to raise $250,000 to $500,000 for this lawsuit, for this litigation. So we're asking people to donate to the United States Justice Foundation. I'll have cards on the table back there. They give you the address, so you can go to the website, you can donate there. You can write a check to them today that I will send to California, or you can mail a check to them. If you can, hold a little fundraiser, get together in your home sometime, I will be there. We have to raise the money to do this. We know the federal government's going to fight us tooth and nail. This is the core of their efforts to deny the Second Amendment rights to the people in this country. Why are they going after veterans? There's 23 million of us out there. And we're all pretty crazy. At least I speak for myself. But we all are well trained. Many of us are armed, and we all took that same oath of office that the President of the United States and Eric Holder, Nancy Pelosi, and Harry Reid all took to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Do you know that there are federal criminal penalties for violating that oath? If you do something to denigrate the Constitution, or you do something to try to destroy our constitutional republic, you can go to jail for up to a year and be fined up to $10,000. That's per offense. I figure between Obama and Eric Holder, they probably owe us about $40 million at this point and about 200 years in jail. Because they do it every day. They defy every day. But that's why they have to stop the veterans. I mean, you know, I know Obama doesn't have a copy of the Christian Bible on his nightstand in the White House. I think instead he's got a copy of Mein Kampf. Because I read Mein Kampf years ago, and Adolf Hitler laid out what he was going to do in Germany. And when he became chancellor, he did it. Well, Obama laid out when he was running for office in 2008 what he was going to do in the United States, and he's doing it. But here was a game plan that was adopted by Adolf Hitler. When he was elected chancellor of Germany, first thing he did was finish the takeover of the healthcare system in Germany by the government. The feeling being, if you can control access to health care, you can control the people. The second thing he did was disarm the German population, beginning with the veterans. Third thing he did was start purging the military of high-ranking officers who did not hold allegiance just to Obama, but to the Constitution of Germany and their country. The last thing he did was he started using mental illness as a weapon. Now, you'll also be able to pick up cards in the back giving you the link to my blog. And if you would like to sign up to receive email notifications when I post a new article, it's all on the Constitution. I only post a couple articles a month because that's all I have time for. But if you give me your name and email address, I'll email you and let you know when I post a new article. And I don't do forwards. Nobody else gets this list. The only other people that would get it would be, we're trying to start a newsletter, a daily newsletter with the United States Justice Foundation, and if we do, I'll give people an opportunity to be on that list also. But if you want to go to my blog, go back a few months, and you'll see an article I wrote called "Psychiatry is a Weapon of Tyranny," a weapon of tyranny. And it basically outlines what Adolf Hitler did and how the same model is being followed here. And so far I've been talking about veterans and how we're being pounded. But let me tell you folks, the rest of you are right now in the sights. At the United States Justice Foundation, one of the things I've been working on the last couple of months is filing opposition memorandums to a whole bunch of regulations being proposed. Now, these aren't laws being proposed by Congress. In Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution, basically says that the President of the United States shall enforce the laws passed by Congress. It doesn't say he can make new laws, it doesn't say he can decide which ones to enforce and which not to. It doesn't say he can turn that lawmaking over to his underlings. It doesn't say he can amend laws. Obama does all of that. So therein is a violation of the oath of office again. By the way, just as an aside, I'm not going to get into this in any depth because I want to talk about the veterans situation more. But I have written, and you can read these on the website at the United States Justice Foundation and also on my blog. I have prepared formal articles of impeachment of Barack Hussein Obama. I have submitted those to members of Congress. They, in turn, several of them, we have confirmed, have submitted them to the House Judiciary Committee to be considered. This is the first movement we've ever had towards impeaching this man. Why do I want to see the impeachment file? It won't happen before the election. We still won't have control of the Senate, enough senators to find him guilty after trial in the Senate. But we can put the brakes on him. If he's trying to fight impeachment, if he's got special prosecutors breathing down his neck and getting information that he's trying to hide with executive privilege, he's not going to have the time or the capacity to continue destroying our country in the next 2 years he's in office. It only takes a majority of the House to pass these. So we'll see what happens. But we do have movement at this point. But what they're doing with the civilian population is one set of rules and regulations we went after is apparently they backed off, was the new IRS rules and regulations that were going to shut down organizations like yours and mine prior to the election, basically saying that we couldn't talk about anything. They were going to tell me that on my radio show which is named our Constitution, just like the booklet, that I would be able to talk about the Constitution 60 days prior to the election. I certainly couldn't criticize the president or any member of Congress. I could talk about gardening, you know, but that would be about it. Well, they backed off of that. What they haven't backed off of is the HHS regulations and the BATF regulation proposals. Well, see, these are all illegal and unconstitutional on their face because these are laws that they're planning. These aren't regulations, but they call them regulations to get by the constitutional question. We'll be suing to stop them if they go through. HHS is following an Obama executive order which basically abolishes the HIPAA law. Now, that's a law that protects the right to privacy of your medical records. And they're not supposed to be given to anybody without your permission. Obama says, nah, we're not going to play by the rules of that rule anymore. And he's instructed HHS, and they have adopted new rules that say that if you are mentally defective, your records have to be turned over to the FBI. What's their definition of mental defective? Minor PTSD. Ever having told somebody you're depressed? Letting your wife or husband handle and pay the family bills? Ever having taken certain medications? When you were a kid, RDD, or, you know, any of these things. Ritalin. You know, when I was a scoutmaster, the biggest scout troop in Louisiana, half my kids were on Ritalin. The schools were making them take it. And so, you know, HDD, HDAD, you know, all of these things, if you ever took medication like that, you go on the list. And to make it even worse, BATF has now proposed changing the definition of mental illness and changing the definition they use when they say, if you have been involuntarily committed to a mental institution, then you automatically are put on the next list. Well, involuntarily being committed means a judge or somebody ruled that you were mentally ill because your family asked for it to be done. I've just got some information here in Texas that this whole system is being horribly abused. But again, we go to the adjudication process. The BATF is broadening the definition to now say that if you have ever seen a psychiatrist or a psychologist for any reason, and were involuntarily sent there, then you have been committed to an institution, even if this was an outpatient thing. Now, why is that so scary? Because when I practiced law in Louisiana, I didn't like family law, but I had to do it to pay the bills. It was routine, and probably is in Texas too, that in a family court case where divorce was involved and custody was involved, the judge would send everybody to see a psychologist to get a psychological evaluation. Not because he thought anything was wrong, and usually they didn't find anything wrong, but just so he knew how to help the kids, how to set up custody, visitation, etc. That millions of people had that situation. They all, under the new BATF rules, will now be put on the next list. You cannot own firearms if these rules or regulations are adopted. We filed memorandums to try to keep them from being adopted. We are hopeful that we will be successful in that. We're fighting, you know, the best fight we can at the USJF, and we do need your help. And like I said, I will have material back there for you, the cards, and also tell you how you can, the copies of the little Constitution booklet here, and also some other books you might be interested in. The book about my dad's unit during World War II, if you're a history buff, it's now selling 1,000 copies a month on Amazon. It's become a bestseller. And it deals with my dad's unit. He was with the 87th Chemical Mortar Battalion. They led the second wave at Utah Beach on D-Day and were in combat 326 straight days. Battle of Perkin Forest, Battle of the Bulge, Cherbourg Peninsula, you name it, they were involved in it. And it's their story. And then I have my patriotic novel, which the liberals have just discovered and gone ballistic over. They're Screaming Bloody Murder on Amazon. It's an e-book on Amazon, and so is the Mortarman. But they're screaming about the Amiyeli, A Story of America. And Amiyeli, by the way, is a Cherokee word. I'm not going to tell you what it means. You have to buy the book. It's in one of the final chapters. But basically, and I wrote this book 25 years ago. And people are going, you gotta be kidding me. How did you know what was coming? Because they didn't publish it until a few years ago. I basically shoved it in the drawer, hadn't even tried to get it published. And my late wife, she was dying of cancer, said, I want you to get that book out. It's important. So I updated it, and they say I'm a racist because I talk bad about the communist Chinese who take us over. And I'm racist because I talk about radical Islamists. And they tell me I'm a gun nut. Yeah, so what? I am. I'm a gun nut because in the book, what happens is we have a president of the United States who basically destroys our Constitution, disarms the military, tries to disarm the American people, weakens our military to the point where we're extremely weak. We get attacked from space-based weapons on platforms launched by the Chinese. And he surrenders. And the book is about the resistance that springs up. And there's some twists and turns in there that some people like. One lady called me a little right after she got the book, and she says, how can you have done this? And I said, done what? She says, I'm sitting here reading the book and I'm listening to Fox News, and on Fox News they're talking about the Chinese just putting 2 platforms into space that can carry weapons. She says, I'm reading that part in your book. Well, I don't claim to have special powers, but it's an interesting read if you want to take a look at it. I could go on and on about what's happening with veterans, what's happening in our country. But what I want to try to do is go ahead and take some time to answer any questions you might have. Anybody? Gonna make me put on my reading glasses again.
No, we're gonna read it for you. All you have to do is answer.